So the next session will show the other side of a coin and focus on the solutions and the practical plans for engaging all stakeholders in modernizing the airspace through an example, through a concrete example of Poland. And please join me in giving a warm welcome to Pete Curran. Peter is IATA Assistant Director, ATM and User Charters. Pete. Thank you.
Hi.
All right.
Good afternoon, everybody. And I think what I'd like to do is to call my fellow panelists to the stage. You can see here I'm going to be joined by the Chief Executive Officer of the Polish Air Navigation Services Agency, Janusz Janiszewski. Please, if you could join him, welcome him to the stage. And also a gentleman who's been on the stage at least once, maybe twice already today, I think, the Polish Secretary for State for the Ministry for Infrastructure, Mikołaj. So it's an interesting session to have now, talking about the airspace strategy for Poland, having just come off the back of that hour session with Eamon and the topic of capacity. IATA has been engaged on the Single European Sky activities for a number of years, and recently, in the last 2 or 3 years, we started to look for some ways where we could help to progress the Single European Sky by working in a more collaborative fashion. I'll use the phrase, even though perhaps some of us don't like it, bottom up. We wanted to work with the member states, with the service providers, with the industry, to help build the Single European Sky from the ground up. And rather than me go into a lengthy explanation on that, I think we've got a very short video, which I'll ask the team to cue, and then we'll have a bit of a discussion around the purpose of the Polish airspace strategy.
Is a truly incredible achievement. Every day, 28,000 flights take off and land, and 941 million passengers fly in and out of the continent every year. Each flight is an opportunity for people to connect, explore, do business, visit a loved one, exchange ideas, and experience new cultures. Europe's airspace, just like the road and rail network, is a critical part of national and European infrastructure. But this network is under strain. The number of flights increases every year, making it difficult for air traffic control to cope. Airspace capacity delays increased 10% in 2016 alone. In addition, events such as strikes and technical failures caused a staggering 1.3 million minutes of delay across Europe, and these issues are multiplying. Look what happens when a crucial part of the air traffic control network in France is closed down. The effects ripple across neighboring countries as passengers find their flights delayed or cancelled. The challenge for the air traffic control organizations will only get harder. The number of flights is set to increase by around 50% over the next 20 years. Unless we plan and invest properly, many of those potential new flights will never be made. Opportunities to fly will diminish, and delays and costs will increase, affecting the whole European economy and society. But there is an alternative. If we can reform and modernize European airspace and air traffic control, the economic benefits are huge. Optimizing air navigation systems across Europe will create an extra 1 million jobs and boost GDP by 245 billion euros a year. An average return flight will be more than 18 minutes shorter. Flight frequencies could increase by up to 35%, and passengers will share 32 billion euros in benefits. Every European nation stands to gain from airspace modernization and will benefit from better air traffic management. Making progress towards a single European sky has never been more important. By working together, airlines, air navigation service providers, airports and governments can deliver this future. But it needs each country to urgently develop a strategic plan for its airspace, and we all need to be on board. For more information, please visit iata.org/airspace benefits.
So thank you. That's the generic story of airspace strategies, and the discussion we want to have today is one about Poland. IATA has been running an activity across a number of member states, and I'm pleased to say that today we're going to launch the airspace strategy for Poland. And the last few words in that video presentation were the key. It's about working collaboratively with service providers, with airports, with other stakeholders, and with governments. And this is the first occasion in Europe where we're going to be launching an airspace strategy where IATA has been collaborating with the stakeholders in a state. And so rather than IATA tell the story, I think it's altogether more interesting if the key stakeholders in Poland tell the story. And perhaps I'll start by referring to Janusz. Can you step maybe backwards a little bit and tell us about some of the difficulties we were having in 2015-16 and what's been done to get us to where we are today in Poland, please?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And I would like to tell you about a little story about our airspace, which is the 6th airspace in Europe. So I think that very soon will be very important for the rest of the Europe. And what we experienced in 2015 and 16 was a tremendous change of the traffic patterns in Europe. It is connected strictly to the Ukraine situation where we are having still a crisis, and this crisis caused the change of the traffic patterns. So in 2015, we've lost more than 10% of the heavy traffic. So totally, it was total change. Then we received the traffic from the Russia territory. So for us, it was a huge challenge, and it caused a lot of troubles, especially within the delays. And it was even visible before, because in 2008 we had 2.5 minutes delay per operation per flight. So it was quite huge amount of time. It means that some aircraft were delayed by 2 hours. And 2017, despite of the increase of the traffic, which we had almost 11% increase of the traffic, we had the highest record ever, because we were very below the target which was established by the European Commission and which we are having in our performance plan, and we scored 0.11 minutes of delay per flight. So it is approximately 6 seconds for each operation. I think that we did a good job. We are cooperating very closely with IATA, and from my perspective, we have a very good future, but challenging future, because the traffic is increasing. It's 3 times higher than in the rest of the Europe. The delays are, I hope, at very good level. And now it's time to invest and to give the opportunity to expansion of the airlines in our region. And as far as I know, the colleagues from the Eurocontrol and IATA just showed me a few days ago that the core area will move to the east. So it means that the importance of this region, of our country, will be very high for the whole system. And for me, the most important thing is that we should treat us as a system which covers 3 main actors, which are the NSPs, Air Navigation Service Provider, airlines, and the airports. If we will be cooperating together, collaborative, we will reach the target and we'll manage with the traffic demand which is foreseen for the next 20 or 30 years.
Okay, thank you. And we'll maybe come back to a couple of those points in a moment, but rather than leave Mikołaj waiting, could you share with us a little bit on your thoughts around why does an airspace strategy matter for the government of Poland? Why is it something that's relevant to encourage or support?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are 2 dimensions of this topic. First of all, I would like to underline that it's an approach which is very close to approach we have taken. So bottom-up approach is, well, we have chosen this one because, someone said that if you want to go fast, you shall go alone, but if you want to go farther, you shall go someone with you. And this is the approach we want to use, and this is because we are still startup. Despite the huge history, big history of Polish aviation. Nowadays, we are still startups. We experience two-digit growth year after year. Some of our airports experienced last year 25% growth in the number of served passengers, but the mobility factor is still on the very low level. That's 1. It's not 2. It's not 3. Not 4. It's 1 for the average citizen of Poland. So the chances are good. The chances are inevitable, and we have to be prepared. So first of all, bottom-up approach. The second issue I would like to underline is the airspace strategy goes in line with the strategic plans of the Republic of Poland, because it's a part of the preparation work for the central transportation hub, which is the key element of new strategy for transportation, for public transport in Poland. It's based on 2 pillars. One pillar is railway, I will not mention today. Don't be afraid. The other is the aviation. Why we have chosen aviation? Because it's most innovative way of transporting people and goods. And I don't have to convince anyone in this room how efficient for the economy is to have strong aviation sector. And we are also sure that we are not able to doing effectively without hearing the stakeholders. This is why we are very glad about this initiative. We fully support it, and we can't promise we do everything you have described here, but right to be heard is something what we can promise.
Yes.
It's one thing what we can guarantee you, and in other words, every argument, every directions you have mentioned, we will strongly take into consideration.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's a very good context from the government's perspective. Janusz, you mentioned investments before, and the previous panel discussion was talking a lot about RP3 and the cost of the service. And here, your Civil Aviation Authority also plays a critical role in regulating both your business, but the way that things operate in Poland. And we've had very good support from your Civil Aviation Authority as well, which is something that I think we should also note. In terms of the investments, we've got a massive infrastructure investment coming on the airport front, but we've got to be able to sustain growth and increase capacity until that infrastructure investment is ready. Can you talk a little bit about how the National Airspace Strategy is going to help manage Chopin development at the same time that eventually you're going to switch to a new mode of operation to the central hub?
First of all, for me, the most important is that industry is working for the industry. Yeah, so this is my clear message to all of you, that we are cooperating together. So I will not do anything without the airline. So I want to have you on my board and to prepare the strategic plan, not only for the CTH, which is the great enabler of traffic growth in Poland, but still we are having a huge traffic patterns and streams overflying our airspace, because we are in the center of the Europe. We are some kind of gateway for the east and for the west. So we are preparing the capacity for the Western Europe. Even we took a part, because according to the last conversation, we took a part in the initiative for ACC. So we are helping the Karlsruhe to deal with the traffic. So I think that the delays during the summer would be much higher than it was. But for me, the investment is very crucial. I need to have a clear plan which will be done with you, with IATA, with the airlines. It has to be transparent, reliable, and of course, I will not spend the money for any, I would say, not needed tools or things. But from my perspective, because I'm still active ATCO on ACC Warszawa, so I need a tool which will help me with, everyday work. So industry is working for industry. I see here a person who is cooperating with me for so many years, and we are creating now the ATM system. So I do believe that ATM system will help everybody, to cancel the borders, I would say, because we are saying a lot about the borders inside the Europe. I do really believe that via industry, in preparing the huge ATM system, for me as a business partner, we will get rid of the borders, and every flight will be treated in the same way, and will be predicted in the same way. And for me, the predictability of the traffic is very important.
Okay. As you were talking there, I was thinking about the comments of the LOT chief executive earlier today. Rafael mentioned that with the growth they are planning and expect, there's going to be more and more challenge. It's a good challenge to have, but more and more challenge put on you. And you've mentioned investments again, and I think that's a really key point to just emphasize for the audience, that a lot of this is about managing future investments in a way where we align with the expectations of the airlines, to what the ANSP can deliver, to what the airport needs to do, and other stakeholders, military, general aviation, etc. And I think that emphasis on the coordination across the industry is something that we should press today. Perhaps a final comment to the Secretary of State. In terms of the next steps, practically, next year, if I understand correctly, there's going to be some changes, some modernization, some updating of legislation in Poland. Practically, what will be the relevance of the National Airspace Strategy for you as the Secretary of State for the Ministry of Infrastructure? What will you do with that? How will you be kept appraised of the relevance of that National Airspace Strategy?
Well, once again, there are two dimensions of it. The first we are working on the new strategy for transportation for Poland. And as I said before, the Central Transportation Hub is a key element of it, because the aviation sector is one of the branches we have put on. But of course, to establish the strategy is not so difficult like to execute it. So,
yes.
So this document, this airspace strategy, might be also the guidance how to implement the strategies, what interests shall be taken into account, and also, I think that taking an assumption all stakeholders' voices is the continuing process. But we are sure that we shall be able to do the changes. The changes are coming, changes are good, but at the same time, the airspace strategy for Poland enable us to focus more on the aspect which might be overlooked otherwise, this specific circumstances of Polish aviation market. But because it's really relevant what was mentioned in the presentation, that in fact the circumstances of every ANSP are different, the challenges are different. As I said at the beginning of our panel, we are not mature market, we are emerging markets. We have completely different challenges than the markets from the western of Europe. We have to preserve the growth. We have to build new capacity because doesn't exist yet. And this is completely different point of start than to think how to exploit the existent bottlenecks.
Yes.
We are in the different position, we have different challenges, but I'm sure that taking into account every stakeholder's voices and taking into account the specific circumstances of our market, where we might be optimistic.
Okay, thank you. I think a couple of key comments that you both made in the last discussion point really comes to that this document is not to sit on a shelf somewhere. Writing of the document was perhaps just the first step. This is more about how we work together and how we align investments in a future-looking way. And I think the arrangements, the working arrangements that we're putting in place in Poland are going to be key to ensure the success of that. I'm conscious of time, and we've got one final thing to do on this panel, which is a great pleasure, and that is to invite IATA's Regional Vice President for Europe, Rafał Schwartzman, up on stage, and for he and Mr. Janiszewski to sign the Airspace strategy for Poland documentation. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you to the panel.
Thank you.
Please. Yeah, it's just a simple document there.